The next story, which kind of leads on somewhat from the last story, which you might appreciate this one again. 1 in 6 New Zealanders is disabled. Why does so much health research still exclude them? So this
Good
is
question.
this was on The Conversation, written by Rochelle Martin and Karen Matthias, I assume, from the University of Otago and the University of Canterbury. And this does a wee bit of a deep dive of sorts into a lot of research in the academic space, a lot of reviews of clinical trials, that sort of thing, into why, or maybe more so, pointing out the fact that disabled people are often excluded from clinical trials, scientific research, particularly in health. The big one that comes out of this is the practical steps to make a difference. So some of the key strategies needed to ensure health research becomes more representative, ethical, and effective have been outlined by the Disability Inclusion and Research Collaboration, a global network of researchers, making sure disabled people are visible in research grant applications. Funding bodies must actively require and reward the inclusion of disabled participants in health research studies. Include disability perspectives from the very start. Disabled people should be involved in formulating research questions, designing studies, and advising on accessibility measures. I have lost my Bluetooth, but it's fine. Ensuring disabled people are ensuring disabled people are research participants whenever possible. Researchers must clearly explain and justify any exclusion material related to disability, which need to be grounded in legitimate safety and ethical concerns rather than mere assumptions. Making it routine to report on disability status. Research studies should use data to identify, track, and report on participants' disability status so it is easier to monitor inclusion efforts and outcomes. By committing to these basic measures, health research can become more representative, ethical, and effective. It will also help the research produce insights relevant to a broader range of people, ultimately leading to stronger and fairer healthcare systems. This is about more than justice for disabled people. It is about ensuring medical research achieves its true purpose to improve health for everyone. Now, I'm going to let you have a few thoughts on this because I'm sure you do. Can you please remove my screen
Oh,
from
yes,
the
yes,
screen, and I
I
will
get
just fix
that.
so I can actually move my mouse again.
No worries.
Bloody driver.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it comes to this issue, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people could probably see that the things that they're trying to get them to change are quite reasonable and they actually allow for better, I guess, what would you call it, testing, make it more rigorous. So it is just, it is annoying because, like, I mean, when I was going through like my uni studies, we obviously got taught about Mātauranga Māori methodologies within like research and all of that. And within that, it's about kind of making sure that when you're doing these kinds of studies, that especially if you're including a specific population, which you can do, it is easy enough to do. You just have to make sure that it's kind of including them. So it's by them, for them, with them, rather than the method of kind of just being like, oh, we probably can figure out that'll probably apply to you the same way it applies to other people. And that's just that doesn't work. And I mean, there's a lot of areas where those kinds of methodologies, they just produce way better outcomes. They have a lot more rigorous, I guess, testing measures in terms of like what they call validity in measures. So yeah, it just makes sense to change those things. But whether they will,
This this here as well, just to bring this up as well. Um, Most funding still goes to research investigating the causes, genetics, and treatment of health conditions. And while these are important to study, there is still too little research focused on how people can live well with disability. Good point. A recent review of research funding for autism, for example, found the most money and number of grants were awarded to biological research. But a survey of about 500 people from New Zealand's autistic and autism communities found people wanted more research into their mental health, well-being, and practical skills development. And that very much kind of leads on nicely from our previous story, and how JFK is trying to find the cause of autism. Oh God, what are we going to do? And putting all that money into basically nothing. What a waste! Instead of looking at how we can improve people's lives and who have autism. You know, what supports do they need? How can we make society easier for those with mental health issues, for example?
I mean, there's so many, like, that's the frustrating part is like they only started studying autism, or the first ever person to be diagnosed with autism literally only just died, I think, last year it was. But yeah, so we've literally only got the research that's based off, I think, approximately the last 80-ish years. And obviously that foundational stuff very much was, and for a long time it was very much was, okay, well, this is a problem that we need to solve, rather than seeing that the problem is not the neurotype. The problem is the fact that the neurotype is struggling to integrate into a society that was not built for them to really exist in very well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research that's being done. Like, I actually follow, obviously, I think I've mentioned it before, I follow quite a few people overseas who do a lot of research around cannabis and autism, but also LSD and autism. There's some really interesting research around how microdosing LSD can be quite beneficial for neurodivergent people. I think there's also some for psilocybin and all those types. But yeah, there is so many, I guess, areas that I think are just so much more important. Like, let's not really focus on whether or not we can fix autistic people. It's more like, hey, how can we help? Like, those, he says, oh, you'll never be able to get a job. A lot of the reasons autistic people and neurodivergent people are held back from jobs is because neurotypicals are assholes and they don't like us. They've done studies on that. They've literally done studies on that. And just, yeah, the fact that there are some things and accommodations that other people don't think that they should give to neurodivergent people, that actually would mean that a lot of us could be able to integrate and, I guess, pay more tax, I guess, because we do pay tax, but I'll pay more tax if it's in jobs that work with, the issues. And it's just frustrating to just consistently see, or like, because even when I was studying, like, some of the things that I think were one of our assignment, we had to basically have a research proposal, and one of my research proposal was about looking into the effects of like when you go undiagnosed. There's actually some research out there that does point to the fact that going undiagnosed can have more negative health outcomes than if you're identified earlier in life, especially for ADHD people, because a lot of people with ADHD who go undiagnosed, unfortunately, end up in the prison system a lot. So yeah, there's a plethora of areas that could be explored and should be explored, rather than wasting our time talking about fucking, having brainworms control these things. It's just there is so many more worthwhile things we could be spending money on, but they'll waste it on their hatred instead, I guess.
That's funny that you talk about tax, and I was thinking there's the tax that we pay the government, but there's also a tax on us. In order to pay that tax, sometimes there's a lot of tax that we pay.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
other words, in managing that, and managing, going to see counselors and therapists, and just to manage being able to. I mean, that was it for me. It was like, I can't hold down a job because my ADHD got in the way pretty much, and then because my ADHD got in the way, the depression, anxiety came up. So it's
Yeah.
And then I just ended up, spending all my money on fixing myself just to hold down a job where actually I don't have to do any of those services if I'm not holding down a 9 to 5, and life
Mm.
is much better. So, and that's very privileged position that I come from. But
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's also like a huge point in that, like people talk about spoon theory, but the other thing too is that spoon theory, absolutely, it's great, but it's also some people start with negative spoons and then have to do so much more. Like I think a lot of neurodivergent people have to just genuinely work harder to do the baseline normal things, and then once they get that cream on top, that's obviously great, but a lot of the time it's just a struggle for people to do the basics rather than have the freedom and the capacity to do more.
yeah, there's I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a personal anecdote or if there was research on it. Um, in that if you accommodate for autistic people in the workplace, probably more that are would you say high needs autistic,
High support
um,
needs, yeah.
high support needs. Yeah, if you can create a role for them inside of your normal company, and it's the perfect thing for them, like maybe they're, I don't know, super into spreadsheets or whatever it is, and
Mm.
it fits that need that they have.
Mm.
They can be the best and most productive worker in your company. I mean, that's
I
pretty
mean,
shit. They
we
have to
already
kind of think
have
of it
that.
like that, but
But we already
like,
have that. Like the IT industry is run on the backs of neurodivergent people. Like
yeah,
the IT department is fucking 100% running on that. There's quite a few actually areas of professions where if you actually look, that's a lot of neurodivergent people. They're just socially acceptable because the way and forms that it takes is wholly different. You know, for me growing up, people didn't really kind of pick up the fact that I wasn't just obsessed with, these certain things. I was just genuinely, these were my fixations. These were the things that my special interest, like psychology was a special interest. No one's going to think that's bad because if you've got autism, it's bad. But no, it's just people are kind of only really thinking of the negative stereotype of the annoying, kicking, screaming, barely verbal little boy.